What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Reservation. I'm one of the hosts, Mal.
I'm El.
And I'm the Son of Picasso.
All right, coming to you guys live over the internet. Probably not live.
It's live at one point, right?
We're all alive.
Yeah.
It's not dead. Hopefully,
Is that false advertising?
I don't know. All right. Well,
Oh man.
I mean, the third one in, and I've already messed up the intro.
Oh, it's okay.
Hey man, there's no mess ups here.
We're running and gunning.
Yeah.
We're making it up as we go. So we want to hope everyone's had a good holiday. We are still ramping up ourselves towards Christmas, and so essentially everything's gonna have like a three week delay. So you guys have already experienced Christmas.
Yeah.
How was it?
Hope you guys got all the gifts you wanted.
Hope you got me something nice.
Did you guys save us any food? I mean, you better have saved me food.
Oh, it was funny, dude. There was this guy I work with. He was telling me that one of the supervisors, he's new in town. He's from somewhere else, like he transferred over.
Oh, he's native?
No, he's not.
Oh, that's something else, not
he's
somewhere else.
Yeah. He's from somewhere else.
Oh, gotcha.
He's an Anglo fellow, but he's really cool. And there was this really nice lady that I work with from Laguna, and I guess she invited him over for Thanksgiving. She was like, "Hey, come over. We're gonna be having a feast. And he was like, he told the guy I was talking to, he was like, "Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of nervous. I don't think I should." And he's like, "No, man, go. Go. It's an honor to be invited,
Yeah.
And he's like, "Go, man. They treat you like a king, give you all the food you want,
Yeah.
show you a good time." And he's like, I don't know. I was like, that's got to be intimidating. You know what I mean? To be like, oh,
Well,
I
your
don't wanna
first time.
go to someone's village,
Where are
especially.
they from?
So he's from up north, like Michigan area.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So that's,
So he's never, this is like first time I think living in the Southwest,
And Pueblo hospitality is like none other.
Yeah.
Feast days or feast times are just amazing. It's like any type of dish you could think of, any type of food you could think of, they make it.
Yeah.
From pozole stew to green chili stew to
Yeah, man, it's good stuff.
just anything and everything.
And I was telling him, I was
Oh,
like,
the pies.
Oh yeah, man, the pies,
Pies
yeah.
are-
For those of you who don't know, we're
Oven
actually
bread.
part Taos Pueblo, so we.
So a pie, the Pueblo pie is not the same as like the general idea of pie. It's like they'll put it like in a bun. Like if you think of like a bun, and it'll be like pureed fruit, so like cherry, prune, apple, like all stuffed into this like beautiful like cookie like dough, and it's delicious.
Cookie like dough.
Yeah.
No, I mean it was.
So how was his experience?
He didn't go.
Oh, he didn't
I
go.
think
He was too scared.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
man.
So I was gonna razz him about it and be like, "Dude, you should have went, man."
You know, they're not going to eat you.
That hasn't
He's a
happened
good
for
guy though, and I was like,
25
"Yeah, I
years.
thought I got a good kick out of that," because I was thinking about that. I was like, I don't know how I would feel either. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it's weird because like when you get invited to go to someone's village, it's like.
It's a big deal.
It does feel weird, It's kind of like, oh, what am I supposed to do?
Oh, yeah, and like we're Indian, so like
Yeah.
to be invited to another Pueblo's for feast days, you know it's an honor.
Well, it's like being invited to somebody's house to like meet their entire family.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. I mean, like for us, I mean, we go to Taos, and like we go to grandmas, like all our different grandmas that are up there, and we all just like visit each of the houses, and like they'll like cook for like 3 days before, just to get all the food ready, all the pies ready, like everything. They'll have like fresh break oven bread, and like these aren't like rolls like you think of like Thanksgiving. I'm like
no,
talking like this thing looks like, I don't know, like half a soccer ball or
Oh, I know,
bigger, like huge.
Gordon Ramsay would go nuts going there, like just experiencing all the food.
Well, you think about it too, right? They're like, well, especially like the oven bread. It's like large quantities coming out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they know they're going to be feeding a lot of people. You
Yeah.
know, and that's just it's part of it, right? It's that hospitality. It's that community. And you're like, they want people stopping by eating their food.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone that's already listened to the first 2 episodes, they know that like for us, family is kind of a huge thing for us.
And food.
And food, family, and good TV shows and movies. That's our big three.
Yeah. And energy drinks.
Energy drinks.
Coffee.
And the fuzz coming in and rating us.
Yeah, that was episode 1.
Yeah.
We got out of
was
that
2.
one okay.
Yeah.
Was that 2?
It was 2.
Oh, man. There's not a day that goes by that we're not busted by the fuzz.
Oh, man. Oh,
No,
man.
I'm not like you fellas. I can't tell a lie. It's really hard for me. I'll tell you half
Hey,
truths,
what
but
are
I won't
what are
lie.
you saying about me? Call me a liar?
No, I don't do bad things. Not anymore.
Only a guilty person would say that, you know?
Yeah. I'm either lying or I'm not.
All right.
All right.
So let's tell you some more truths.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. We should get a polygraph.
We should.
We should put that to the test, man.
Oh man.
Get one of those. Get like an old polygraph. You know.
See, that's the problem. Is no matter what, I'd probably fail because like as soon as like
yeah.
Remember,
Remember,
out
man.
of it right now. You're
It's just
sweating.
not a lie.
yeah, I'm already like it's cold in the room, and I'm already getting sweaty because I'm wearing a jacket, and now I'm like
Yeah, it
even
could
more
be freezing and
nervous.
be like, Mal, are you cold? You're like, yes.
Yes,
You're
no.
like, that's a lie. That's a
I
lie.
don't know.
It's not a lie if you believe it.
That's
George Costanza.
Thank you, Seinfeld. Oh
Nice.
yeah, and we need to. Oh, I saw actually looked it up. Festivus is supposed to be like December 23rd.
Oh,
So
it's right
for
around the corner.
everyone listening to this, you already missed it, but remember, comes around every year.
Yeah.
So Festivus, the 23rd of December. So yeah, we got to get ready soon. We got to get the poll out and the
Gotta
feats
get my
of
list
strength,
of grievances.
grievances.
Got a lot of problems with you people. You got to hear about them. I like how he's like, Kruger. My son tells me your company sucks, and George is like, oh, here we go. And Kruger's just sitting there like, this is weird, you know?
Didn't that all start off because he was running a scam for charity?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the reason why his
human-
boss is there. Yeah, the human
fund.
fund. Just trying to get out of buying some like presents for people.
Oh man.
Made a donation to the human fund.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
So George, I was. You can imagine my surprise when I found out that there is no human fund.
Could you imagine like handling everyday like occurrences like Seinfeld just to see how it would play out? Like give everybody a gift this year that says money's been donated in their name.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And like, okay, so on the other hand, like because I work in an office now, like last year I had kind of like ran into the whole gift giving thing, and we did the Secret Santa thing, and the person I got was like, she had been there for quite a while, had a reputation of being, you know, a really nice lady, and she like gave me like her list of like things that she was like maybe wanted for Christmas, and it's all supposed to fall within like $20 or something like that. And I was like, I know everyone's gonna like spend more than $20. That's just like how these things kind of happen.
It's like an unwritten law or
Only
Yeah.
the cheap ass
unspoken. Yeah,
spends
yeah.
20.
Oh man!
They're like, come on.
So
we say it's a minimum, but come on.
so I put it off until the last minute in true like me fashion, and I'm like sitting there like the night before, and I'm like, oh man, I'm supposed to bring in stuff. So I tell my wife, I'm like, what should I do? She goes, well, she's a woman, so more than likely she likes chocolate. Go ahead and get her some chocolate. What else? And I was like, well, she wanted these things, and I don't know. I don't have any money because I already spent all my money on like you and everyone else, and I have like maybe $40. And she was like, well, just go get her like some stuff from Walgreens. So I go to Walgreens, and the person who got me like gave me like
Walgreens is like the single dad capital of the
Yeah.
world.
so I get like one of those fancy like those champagne bottles that's full of like Hershey Kisses and stuff like that, and like a few other things I can't remember, like a hat and gloves kind of a thing. Well, she had wanted like a floor heater and like a couple of other things to keep her warm in her office, and I was like, I don't know of any like floor heater that's gonna like cost like $20 like that. I don't know. So I show up and I give her my stuff, and she's like, "Oh, thanks, Mal. That's cool." And I'm like, "Yeah, I feel bad." And then everyone else is like giving each other like floor heaters and like tickets to stuff, and I'm like, "You guys went over the $20 limit." Like,
I know for a fact, Monster Truck Rally tickets cost way more than $20.
yeah. So
Sunday.
and like even me, like the person who got me like knew I like root beer, and so they gave me like a case of like the Barks root beer, and I was like, that's like $5. And then she gave me like root beer candy, all kinds of root beer candy, and I was like,
You're the root beer guy, huh?
no. Yeah, I like root beer. Yeah,
They got you $30 worth of root beer.
yeah,
And root beer
paraphernalia.
products. Root beer and root beer products.
I'm the Hank Hill of root beer.
I do
Yeah.
like root beer though.
So did she like her presents then?
I
Or did you feel like maybe,
kind of avoided her after that.
oh no.
Eventually, she ended up leaving, but I don't think it was my fault.
It was all your fault.
Oh, she left the company?
She didn't get
Yeah.
that.
Oh.
She didn't get that floor heater froze to death in her office. It's all your
The company wouldn't budge. They wouldn't kick the heat up for her, so that
Shoot.
floor heater was the last straw for her, you know?
Yeah,
I specifically wrote a list.
it's like I thought about just stealing the warehouse guys' heater, give it to her.
It's all property of Greg on the back. Give it to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just could give her an old one.
You know,
From home.
there's something about working in a warehouse that's just fun. Warehouse, I guess, I don't know, the environment's a lot of fun. Like, I remember driving that forklift, just, like, hauling ass. Especially, like, I couldn't imagine working in a populated warehouse, because the warehouse we worked in, like, there was only 3 people working there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
like, you could, if you wreck that thing, you're going to be the only one to suffer.
Yeah.
Oh, that was awful, because I remember I was pulling down some pallets that were like, I don't know, 3 levels up. As I'm pulling them out, the tape gets caught on the support beam of the shelf and pulled apart the pallet. And so it was like a bunch of boxes, like, I don't know, like almost maybe like 80 boxes just come raining down from like
Oh, man.
2 stories up.
Yeah.
And like just land on the ground. It was my birthday too, and so I'm like standing there, and I was like, I'm supposed to be going to lunch and having a nice birthday lunch, and now I gotta restack this stupid pallet. And so yeah, I mean, that's the level of forklift training I had, which was not very much.
I get to unload the trucks, you know, and they have this really cool machine that, like, it'll lift you up to the height of the boxes,
Oh,
and you
that's
can
cool.
drive it in, and it's connected straight to the conveyor belt. It's huge. The warehouse I work in, it's huge, man. And it's weird because, like, safety is the number one priority.
Oh,
So there
that's nice.
isn't any, like, there is no shenanigans, you know? It's like, they're like, no, you're going to follow the rules, and if you can't,
Yeah, they'll
we
get
don't have time for you, you know? So it's like, yeah, I don't have shenanigans at my job, but man, it is crazy just the amount.
Yeah.
When you think about it, the amount of products that, like,
See, I do make a joke about, you know, it being chaotic, but, you know, safety is a big thing. I felt bad because somebody actually got hurt at that warehouse that we worked at.
no.
Yeah.
Just, they didn't really follow safety protocols and things like that. And somebody
Yeah,
got
man.
pretty hurt, so.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
Yeah.
I mean, so I mean, on your side, I mean, you had at least had some forklift training working at Lowe's at one point, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. It was
Me, I didn't have any forklift training.
they, like, threw you the keys and said, have at it.
this is forward,
You
this
gave
is
me my
back, and-
forklift training. We were just sitting in a car, and I was like, I don't know how to move the forklift. I don't know how to use it. And you're like, oh yeah, just, you know, front, back, lift the thing. Just take it one step at a time and don't worry about it. Don't stress it. And I was like, is that really it? And just like the next day I had to go like pull down pallets, and I was like, oh yeah, just one thing at a time.
Oh,
you know?
man.
Yeah,
Don't
because
stress
it's
it.
like a ton of little corrections. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You just make little corrections,
Yeah.
and you're
No, yeah, you're
you
right.
can't just
gotta-
make giant swooping turns, or you're gonna wreck.
I mean,
And
eventually
then
I
you
got
don't
there.
feel it because that thing is so heavy.
Yeah.
So it's like
Oh,
you
it's
could
so
hit
much fun.
something that like a big old metal pole and not
Oh,
even
yeah.
know it, and like then you look
You
back
just
and
hear
you're like,
screeching.
oh shit, what did I hit?
Man, I used to work a different one. I used to work at. It was cool, man. They had like the motorized. It wasn't like a rideable forklift, you know, but it was like a motorized hand forklift. It was
Oh, yeah.
awesome.
Oh,
dude.
nice.
So it's like you pull it up there and then you just like bring it up, and man, the first few times like you're pulling something from like the top shelf, man, it's like it's a little nerve wracking because you're like,
Oh my God.
I think I'm lined up, and you go forward and you're like, oh no, that's the top hitting the roof of the little pallet. You know, I gotta come down a little, bring it down a little bit. Oh, it's too low. Man, and then you're like, okay, I think I'm out far enough.
Yeah.
Come down, it just barely catches the lip. You're like, no, don't do that. More. Okay, let's come out. Yeah, man.
Just the level of panic of hearing that, just like,
But you know what's
Hitting
cool
you
about
hard.
stuff like that? And this is like, I think it just kind of goes over to anything. It's like everybody learns. Everybody starts at like, everybody starts at the bottom of something. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
And you work your way up, you get more comfortable with it, and then you get that confidence in it, and then you're zooming around. Like every time I start a job and I'm like there, like I see people that like have been doing it for a while, you know?
Yeah.
And you're like, man, I can't do that. You know what I mean? Like you something inside you is just like, oh man, that looks like impossible.
Oh yeah,
you know?
they're like clicking buttons.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah. Then you're there for like a month, 2 months, and you're like, man, I'm like zipping through here. I know what I'm doing, you know.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm comfortable with it. But it's like, yeah, it's especially nerve wracking when it's like I'm responsible for this like however many pounds of
Thousands of dollars
yeah,
worth of product.
yeah, you know. But yeah, eventually you figure it out, you know. So
Well, I
man.
have this theory that like the warehouse is actually like dog years. Like if you're there for like a month, it's equivalent to like having worked there for like a year, just because of the fact that like there's so much going on, and then eventually like you go from like the new guy who's like weird or awkward to like the guy that's been there the longest, and like everyone's like, oh yeah, hey, what's up, Brett? And you're like, my name's Brad, but it's okay. Or like and then pretty soon everyone starts coming up with nicknames for you, and like pretty soon you're coming up with like new names for other individuals. I mean, it's crazy. And so yeah, like warehouse years, it's a real thing. Like I don't know, like I had only worked in the warehouse for like 4 years, but it felt like I had been there for 10. And like my back hurt, my legs hurt, my arms hurt. And then I eventually was like, I need to get out of here. Got in the office, and now,
Like,
I'm
I
like,
need to do something else.
now I'm sitting all day, and now I'm like, oh man, I need to get up and do things.
Wish I was in the warehouse.
Yeah. Yeah. But providing for a family is it's easier when you're in an office.
Man, I was looking back at it, and even though I've always painted, like I've always had another job on the side, like, and I've had some just crazy random jobs, like, just I'm almost to feel sane, if that makes any sense, you know, because you can create forever, but eventually, like, it feels good to be out and,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, to, like,
Being
just
amongst
have a
other
normal
people.
job, if that makes any sense.
I think, you know, like, so everybody that's been working from home, you know what I mean? There's that, like, fatigue, I think, from not having social interactions with people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even if, like, yeah, like you said, like, the job could be the most basic, boring job ever, you know, but it's kind of cool when you're with other people and you
Yeah.
get to, like, you're all experiencing that, you know? It's hard when you're working alone. You know what I mean? You don't, like, get to... I don't know, complain to each other. You know, you don't get
You
that
don't
same
complain to
like, oh
yourself.
man, I hate this job. You're just talking to yourself,
Yeah.
and then eventually you're like, man, I think I really hate this job. I think I'm gonna quit. You know, so it's like at least when you're with other people, there's a collective like you can collectively sigh, but you're together. You know.
Well, I think for me, like growing up, like because essentially we first started off as self-employed, like me doing art and things like that. Like for me, working on my own was a lot easier to do before I had like an everyday job, because like once I get out of work and now I'm like, oh man, I need to go home and I need to get some stuff created so that way I can go to art shows and continue to have that extra income. Now I'm like sitting there and I'm like, man, I'm tired. then my son comes over and he's like, I want to play. And I'm like, okay, let's play. And then after he goes to bed, I'm like, man, okay, either I play video games, work on editing podcasts, or create something. And I only got about 2 hours to do that all in before I have to fall asleep.
Yeah, man. When you have a job, like you have a regular job, it's hard to manage your time with like anything else, you know. Finding time for yourself to like you say, create something, you know. It's hard to find that time because you got to find time for that. You got to find time for family. You know, like all these things. It's weird when you're working like
with
8
that
to
said,
10
I
hours
wanna,
a day.
you
Yeah.
know, thank our listeners because
Yeah.
you know,
thank you guys.
we appreciate you listening to us because it takes
Agreed.
time out of your day, and you know, it also takes our time to edit all this together. So, you know, we really want to bring you guys something that's entertaining
Nice.
and
Yeah.
you know, good quality.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we hope you guys are enjoying it. We're having fun. You know, if anything, we're having a lot of fun here, I
Oh,
think.
yeah.
So hope you guys are feeling the same, you know, which brings us to what we're going to talk about.
So I think today what we're going to talk about is, and I kind of touched on it, like the idea of like getting names, getting nicknames. And I feel like, so did a little research, and for me and Son of Picasso, I believe we actually have a Kiowa name, which is specifically because I'm half Kiowa. We're both half Kiowa and half Navajo, and my name in Kiowa is Koitali, which, when translated, is Kiowa boy. And so, and I guess like part of it is like, it's supposed to age with me, but my great grandfather who gave it to me passed away years ago, and nobody else has seen fit to give me another name or to found something that I do well enough or interesting enough to give me a new name. What's your name?
So my native name was given to me also by my grandfather, and it's pronounced Anhayom, and translated to English, it means he knows, meaning that, you know, I have that
Insight.
Yeah, that insight to, I guess, see things that the normal people don't really see, you know, and like it. At first, like I was like, why did he give me this name? And as I've gotten older, that insight has just gotten like clearer and clearer and clearer as I've gotten older. And it's you know, just amazing to think about our elders and how, you know, they have that intuition, you know, they have that connection into, I guess, like you want to call it the ether of the planet, you know, and feel that connection and know who people were or are, you know. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and so like in the little bit of research I did, and let's be honest, like I did a little bit of research, but I looked into like Kiowa naming ceremonies and things like that, and pretty much what I saw was that it wasn't necessarily like a big production. It wasn't a big deal. It was more of like, hey, everyone, this is my son. This is his name. And a lot of the times the names were given as, it seems like, descriptive. So like yours is he knows, which our great grandfather, Grandpa Charlie Soodle, he looked at you and he obviously looked at you and saw that you had an insight into the world and things like that. Whereas for me, he looked at me and he was like, he's a little Kiowa boy.
And like at this time too, you were the only one in the family who had long hair, and like you were like what, maybe 8-9 years old.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was like I want to say like a native, like Renaissance almost, like where, and he saw, you know, this boy is going back to the old ways.
Well, at the same time, I mean, I had long hair, but like whenever we had family events or family gatherings or something, mom and dad were always dressing me up in like a suit. And so like he may have given me my Kiowa name as Kiowa boy, but at the same time he had another name for me called what was it, the lawyer?
Yeah.
Called me the little lawyer because I wore like slacks and suspenders and a button-up t-shirt, you know, kind of a thing. And
Yeah.
You always had vests.
And
Yeah, and a vest. And then if I could
3-piece suit.
and if I could swing it, I had my lightsaber, my toy lightsaber
Yeah.
in my belt. You know.
I think it's kind of so it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, part of our heritage as Native peoples, it's like there's a reverence for our elders, because we almost, they have wisdom, and in like just part of the heritage is that as young people, in the community, you listen and you learn from them,
Yeah.
and in the same way, as you meet, and your elders, your grandparents, your great grandparents, aunts and uncles that are there. You notice that there's the ones that are watching, they're observing,
Yeah.
and they listen, and I think that's something that I don't know. I think it kind of goes over people's heads sometimes, but like, for someone to, you know, be able to make those observations and then turn that into a name, like you said, it's almost a descriptive, but it's not just descriptive. It's watching and observing someone and their behavior,
Yeah, their character traits.
Yeah, their character, looking deeper than just the outside and being like, I've noticed this about you, and that was always what was kind of neat to me about it. Yeah.
Well, like, okay, so like along the same lines, like I went and I looked up like notable Native American chiefs who had their names and how they got their names, and like one of them, like if you're Native, of Sitting Bull, and so I looked it up, and apparently the way he got his name was his father. Well, I believe his name was Jumping Bull, and it just so happened that they were fighting the Crow at one point in some kind of battle, and his father observed how Sitting Bull, instead of running in and automatically trying to jump in the fray, trying to fight the Crow, he ended up actually taking his time and formulating a plan and trying to create a plan of attack. And so therefore his father named him Sitting Bull, because he sat down, figuratively sat down and waited and before he acted. That at the same time, like, is descriptive, but like he just like took his name, his father took his name and just added sitting to instead of jump.
That's interesting that you say that, because that's kind of how like our family name goes. Like our father, his, I guess, government name, you would call it, is Benny. And then he named me Benjamin. And then I looked at it and I named my son Cash, which is kind of interesting because everybody uses the terms for money as Benjamins. It's all about the Benjamins. Yeah. And it just, I didn't set out for me to call him Cash, like in reverence to money. It was more of a homage to the rebel himself, Johnny Cash, the Man in Black. But yeah, if you look at that, it's just interesting how it went from Benny to Benjamin to Cash. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, so like along the same lines of doing that research, I looked into Red Cloud, and I think it was Red Cloud. It was either Red Cloud or Sitting Bull, but one of them, their mother's name was She Thinks While She Walks. And I was kind of like, are you naming her, or are you just saying what she does like every day? But I mean, at the same time, like whoever it was who named her was like, she spends a lot of time like thinking about things, like thinking things, and she does all this thinking while she's doing her tasks and doing everything else. So more than likely, they named her Thinks While She Walks, because she spent so much of her time being insightful, being, figuring out ways to do things. Or
like, when you say it, it almost has like a Japanese haiku sound to it, when you talk about our names, because they're almost like a phrase together. And if you took it in segments, it wouldn't make any sense. But when you put it all together, it has just poetry to it, Oops, sorry.
And so, like, I mean, so for us, the difference between like me and my brother is our last name. For me, my last name is Sudal Nelson, and basically the way that came about was when I was born, my father's last name is Nelson. My mother's maiden name is Sudal, and they didn't want that to disappear. In the general idea of like how names uh,
And how I
go
would have to
out.
say like government names more so in like Anglo tradition, how names no longer exist.
Yeah, and how they can be lost to history, which is kind of funny because your last name is Sudal Elliott,
Mm-hmm.
and Sudal is actually a Native American. The Kiowa is a Kiowa word, and it means Yellowstone. And the way it was explained to me is yellow is actually the color of medicine, is a medicine color amongst the Kiowas, and so stone is yellow rock is essentially what it kind of translates to, and so we're like medicine stone, but it's spelled Tsoodle, and so therefore the T is silent, and having to explain that every day of my life, like if I
It's kind of like whenever I hear you guys say it, it's almost kind of like that phrase is attached to it. My last name is Soodle. The T is silent. So
Yeah.
like I've always heard that
Yeah,
like my
yeah.
whole life.
I usually just wait till they look at it and they're like, I'm like, the T is silent. I wait because I know it's formulating in their head of like, how do you say this? Wait, Tsoodle. To suit, yeah. No, the T is silent. Yeah, it's funny. So at my wedding, we had met the DJ. He was a friend of someone else, and he was like, okay, wait, just real quick, how do you guys pronounce your last name? Because we hadn't met him before, and he was kind of like doing us a favor, and and we were like, this is literally like 5 minutes before we're supposed to. He's gonna announce us,
Yeah.
We're like, it's Soodle, and he's like, oh, okay. I was like, yeah, the T is silent. Think of it like, I was like, think of it like,
noodle.
yeah, noodle, but like an S instead of an N.
Yeah.
And for some reason, he didn't quite get that, but he was like, yeah, okay. So he goes out there and he's like, all right, everybody, I want to introduce you to Mr. and Mrs. Snoodle.
Oh no.
Snoodles. It's like, no, not Snoodles. There's no N.
Like, hey,
So-
everybody.
It's like,
Which is funny because he probably just messed it up in front of a whole bunch of Soodles.
I don't think anybody heard it because everybody was so excited. And
Oh, yeah.
I know I didn't really notice it until like a little bit later. I'm like, wait, I think he said the Snoodles.
Which like okay, so for me, like the name Soodle is like the holding on to like our heritage, our culture, and like the big like tough native name, like it's my warrior name kind of a thing. And then for like a 4-year-old to come up and be like, Soodle, that's like noodle Nelson, you're Noodle Nelson, and I'm being like, okay, fine, yeah, that's okay, I can't be mad at you.
Noodle Nelson.
That's a yeah, like
Shut up.
No, I'm not afraid to hit a little kid.
you guys are clever, very clever. I've gotten that over the many years. So yeah, if you're looking at it,
When I
Soodle.
was a kid, I used to be jealous of you guys having the last name Soodle because my last name is just Nelson. My government last name is Nelson. And like I remember growing up and like having like my white friends ask me like just the most absurd crap ever. They'd be like, why don't you have like a cool last name like Eagle Claw or Bear Claw? If I was Indian, that would be my last name. And like at first I was like, yeah. And then
would
I
be
thought
cool.
about it and I was like, how the hell is my last name Nelson? Who was the first Nelson? And this is like the thinking of like an 8-year-old,
Oh yeah,
And so then I started to look at it and I asked my dad and I was like, where did we get this last name Nelson? And then he, pretty much told me our, ancestors picked it off a chalkboard in residency school. And I was like, oh shit. And once I realized that, I never had an attachment to the last name Nelson. I never was like, oh, that's my pride and last name, you know. And I remember going into high school, and like the teacher had everybody do projects on their last name, and like she was like, make sure you go on the internet and you can go to this coat of arms thing and print this coat of arms, right? And I'm like, coat of arms, and like I type in, you know, and I look and it's all Nelson, and it's like this like knight helmet and like just this Eurocentric just propaganda crap. And I'm like, what the hell? Like my people are native. Like this name Nelson has nothing to do with our people, you know?
Yeah.
And so then I started to do more research and found out who the original Nelson was. And I'm like, man, that guy owes my people some money.
So like on that same lines, like then like because we did we all went through the same thing. We all had to research our names. And Nelson, I actually learned, was the son of the Nile is what it refers to, which like Nelson is European, so therefore, but it came from like somehow the son of the Nile. Like, does that mean we're like related to Moses or something?
Like Egyptian? Who knows?
I don't know. But I mean, along the same lines, like, so I essentially have both of your guys' last names, and but one of the things that I also got that I don't know if Dad ever gave you one, Son of Picasso, but I got my dad's Navajo name, which is Denitsoy. Yeah, I know. I got all the names, and I got all the names I also didn't ask for. Like they called me Mouse, Muskrat, Musketeer. Montague, anything with the M. And yeah, I mean, I eventually I got older and I had that like epiphany in a moment of like, my name is actually Malachi. I haven't used that name since I was about 8 years old.
No one calls me that.
But so the name that I also got from my father was Denitsoy, which translates from Navajo as Yellow Man, which if you look up our father, his name is Yellow Man. His artist name is Yellow Man. And so that's what he goes by. But essentially it comes down to the same thing as Soodle. It means yellow man and therefore means medicine man. So we're actually from a long line of medicine men. And that line of medicine men kind of got cut off when our grandfather went to boarding school, and that's where he got the last name Nelson, from going to boarding school, them taking away his name, and his name was Tom Nelson. They took away his last name, told him that his name was going to be Tom, and gave him the opportunity to choose his last name, so he chose Nelson. So
Yeah,
that's how that happened. But
Isn't that weird? We could have been like Williams or some other just generic name. you know what I mean?
But that's how I've always felt, and I think that's why I have a complex now. That's why I gave myself my own homme de plume, because it's like I have no physical attachment or even like emotional attachment to the last name Nelson. It's not a part of me. It's not a part of our culture. Like it doesn't mean anything to me. And it's so odd to tell that to white people who don't understand that. They say, "Oh, what's your name?" And I'm like, "Oh, I go by the Son of Picasso." And they look at me like, "Okay, what's your real name?" You know what I mean? And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's who I am.
Yeah.
that's kind of like Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Like coming, like his cultural revolution was realizing his name was Muhammad Ali, whereas like yours is realizing that your name is the Son of Picasso,
Which in essence is just the homage back to our dad being one of the greatest native artists ever, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
So
Well, actually, I have a question for you, El. Do you have name envy? Do you wish you had like a native name, or had a name?
Yeah. No, I did for a long time. but there's also something about like if I had to ask for it that it didn't think it would feel like it would be special. You know what I mean? I want a native name, and then be like, all right, let's just give him something. So yeah, no, I definitely wish, but like this kind of just comes back to the fact that like I wasn't, my parents weren't, I don't know, we just weren't raised to, we were raised in the city. You know what I mean? We weren't, we weren't around, like
that level of culture, that level
yeah,
of
it was like we were raised,
indigeneity.
yeah, and so it wasn't like it wasn't a thing, it wasn't a thing anybody did here,
Yeah.
so
Well, and also too, I think at that time too, there wasn't the I call it the Native American Renaissance that we're living in right now. Like that had just started around that time. You know what I mean? People getting back in touch with who they were culturally,
yeah,
and so I think if you were raised now, you know what I mean, it would be completely different.
yeah, no, I
but
agree.
but during then, people were just focusing on making rent. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And the idea of having free time to research your culture is like, you're just trying to be able to get some sleep at the end of the day so you can get up and go back to your 9 to 7
Yeah.
versus 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Well, in along the same lines, I mean, with losing our names, losing our culture, and that kind of a thing. I mean, for us, like I always wanted to be able to speak Navajo or Kiowa, and like in our family, we had used small words, like you would like if you were learning Spanish, like "Donde está la biblioteca?" You'd use those kind of phrases, or like, "Oh, I got to go to the baño," like baño means bathroom, but for us, like it was like words like, "Oh, okay," the utilitarian words of like, "Look here," or show, or like what else, like chant, like we had discussed before, and lige, and utilitarian everyday functions.
Or just like the names of foods, like
Besa, sit here, manzana, apple, that kind of thing. And so also referring to other people's ethnicities as in those appropriate terms. And so one day I actually asked my dad, I was like, why don't we speak Navajo anymore? Why didn't you learn Navajo? And he said he was like, well, I actually learned Navajo from our grandmother, and when he got home from spending the summer with his grandmother, he could speak it and speak some of it and understand most of it. But he asked his father, like, why don't we speak Navajo at home? And his father told him, our grandfather told him, because the future isn't going to require it. Because our future in the United States, that's not going to have any place in our future in the United States. That the main language that's going to be spoken is English. So I didn't want to confuse you or put that burden on you to have a difficulty trying to translate what you want to say from Navajo into English. And and to me, for me, that kind of broke my heart, because I was like, man, how much I value knowing just the few words that I know in Navajo, the few minor connections to my heritage means so much to me. And yeah, like just feeling that loss of that connection, I think it's kind of one of the most effective ways to cause detriment to a people, is losing their culture, losing their identity.
I mean, that's why it's like one of the first things you do. You know what I mean? When you're taking over something, is you take that identity away from them, and you wipe it clean.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's a major loss. So.
Well, if you think about it, like they do it to prisoners all the time by like having them dress all the same way, chopping off their hair.
Mm-hmm.
It's what the military does to their recruits. They chop off their hair. They just identify them as their last name, that kind of thing. So break down the individual, so that way they're more pliable, more docile, more easily able to control.
Yeah.
Not saying that there's anything wrong with the military. I'm just saying that like that's how you establish control over people.
It's effective.
And I think that's amazing, though, that we, as Native males, recognize that. You know, you have a son, I have a son, and it's like our job to teach them that. You know, that way they're ready for the next 10 years, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
What's up, guys? Welcome back. Those were some lovely messages we heard there. Yeah, so where are we headed, Skitch?
So, I don't know. I had a couple of different ideas we could talk about in our next topic. I was thinking about, did you guys ever use Indian to your advantage in school?
Yes.
Like, I don't know, your teacher give you some sort of assignment and you just had to, I don't know, you didn't give it the time you were supposed to and you just make something up about being Indian.
Actually, I had something along the same lines. Like, so there was a bunch of kids who had kind of been like picking on me in middle school. And I told them that my family were a part of Medicine Men. And I told them that I put a curse on a necklace, and the last person to touch it would be cursed. And I don't remember what the curse was, but all of them freaked out, and I threw it at them. So, score one for bullies, or not bullies, for me, for getting out of that situation. But got to fight the tyranny.
It is kind of funny when you meet people who don't know anything about being Native, and they're kind of like a blank slate into Native life. And so sometimes you're kind of like a little self-conscious because you're like, anything you do, they're going to be looking at it like, I knew this one Native guy that really loves squirt. You know what I mean? Like, I knew this. It's a well-known fact. Natives love root beer. You know what I mean? Like,
No, that's just me. I like root beer a lot.
$20 worth of root beer.
Over $20.
Over $20. Yeah, not skimping on the root beer. No, it was funny because growing up, we always had we all went to the same church, and as we got like into like middle school / high school, we'd have youth groups from like Kentucky and like the Midwest. They were coming to help. They would be like basing at our church, and then like we would take them out to like the reservation to help someone like do some sort of mission work, whether it was like
work on their pump houses.
Yeah,
like
putting like a new roof on or something. But it was funny because they didn't know, and they were. I mean, I don't want to say they were ignorant, but they didn't know. They honestly didn't know
They're
what life
uneducated.
is, for Native Americans. I lived in the city all my life, and I remember having one.
Hey guys, we're back. Sorry, we had a little bit of technical difficulties. I think the feds finally found us and cut power to our equipment, and
those signal jammers really got us.
yeah, so we're back. But I believe it was Elliot. Elliot was telling us an interesting story.
Well, we were talking about what were we talking about? We were talking about just like using your right, being Native and coming across people who don't know what
Anything
that is.
about our culture.
Yeah, and so you kind of mess with people, or you said kind of use it to your advantage or whatever. I was telling a story about how we all grew up in the church, and we had youth groups coming in from time to time. And it was really cool. It was really cool because you got to meet people,
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know people from Kentucky, and man, we met some people with some pretty heavy Kentucky accents. And anyways, so like, I remember like when you experience meeting someone who doesn't like know your culture, it's it's kind of a trip, man. It's funny. It's it's kind of funny because they literally have no idea like what life is like, and it's like I grew up in the city. I'm like, my life is probably just as you might have more experience with being like in nature than I do. Yeah, like
you know how to
like I grew up in the city, but they were like, do you guys still live in teepees? I was like, am I saying that right? Teepee? It's like, no, none of us live in teepees.
My grandma had a little play one.
That reminds me of, I forgot what movie it was, but this. Oh, you know what it was? It was the Next Karate Kid. I was watching that with my son, and he looks over and he's talking to that Asian man, and he's asking him stuff in like, Chinese, and he looks at him. He goes, "Bro,
it would be like Mandarin or
I'm from
Cantonese."
Detroit." And he's like, "Oh, okay." It's like they're asking you about cultural,
definitely, and
what it's like to live.
And it's funny because you're like, oh, and then you have that instance where you're like, yeah, I could mess with them.
I can tell them anything.
Oh yeah. No, we still live in teepees and
we ride horses.
Yeah.
We want to talk. We use smoke signals. And
yeah.
we shoot buffalo. You want to go next week?
We shoot buffalo. Yeah.
Well, why don't you come to our feast next next week?
But like, it's funny. It's funny when you get like those interactions with people because they really don't. They don't know.
What's nice about it too is that we're lighthearted. So like we'll tease and we'll have fun about it, but we'll also educate you on.
Yeah.
On.
Well, I think the one of the things that I thought was interesting, funny, and yet filled with, I feel like, a lot of the native humor that we have is every time we'd have some kind of interaction with one of their leaders, their youth leader, or somebody who's been instrumental in their group, and our father would find them and talk to them, and just spending time with them, he'd give them a name, like bringing it back to like what we talked about earlier. And so he'd give one of the ladies she had come across, and she had been instrumental and a big part of it, and he gave her the name what was it? It was something like woman walks tall or something like that. And basically it was because wherever she went, whatever she saw, whatever she did, whatever she said got done by people, and she had the presence to be able to speak and command the respect of everyone else in their group. And he gave her that name, but at the same time, in doing the process and doing the naming ceremony in that situation, he ended up getting a burnt log from like our fireplace and put ash on her forehead. And so it was silly, but like good natured, because at the same time, like everyone began to call her that name and refer to her under that name. But at the same time, like we also poked fun. We also made it a joke. And that's just like perfect, like native humor is like, we do stuff with you because we like you and respect you.
And if we tease you, it's because we love you. It's not because it's being nobody's being a bully. I think that's where native culture is a little different.
Yeah.
Where we'll make you cry, but anyone else tries to do that. If anyone else makes you cry, we'll fight them, but we can make you cry.
And it kind of makes you really think about our roles on this planet as Native Americans. Because in one sense, like, when we say something, it means something. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at any other culture, what other culture is like that? Like the whole idea of the Indian with the tear coming down his face. Yeah. Like the whole society could get behind that. Like, man, that means something if even Indians are crying. You know what I mean?
I mean, and what you're referring is to like old Iron Eyes crying over the people throwing trash out on the side of the road.
The litter.
And like the idea, like Iron Eyes he was French.
Yeah, he wasn't even Indian.
He wasn't even native. And like, the fact though that imagery itself was able to, I mean, I don't know how effective it was. I mean, I don't know any like data, but that obviously affected enough people that it caught the attention, and using that imagery, it's like the power that we've been given. And you know what they say, with great power comes great responsibility.
And good jokes.
And good jokes.
I feel like there's also a fine line though about like, you know, not making yourself a caricature, you know, in that
Yes.
sense, because I think that's what he did, you know, in that sense. Like it, like you said, you don't know how effective it was. Years later, people make fun of it. You know
Yeah.
what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And,
Well, here we are
and
making
like,
fun of it.
Yeah, I know, yeah. But it's like, you know, we weren't like in on that joke. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We weren't like, oh, this is gonna be hilarious. It was more of a like, I don't know. Now it's like, you know, it's I don't know. It's kind of, it's weird, you know. So like I think like there's a fine line between. And I think that's maybe that's where it's the difference, right? If we're the ones making the jokes, we
Or
are,
we're in on it.
yeah, or we are in on it, or you know, it's not like an outsider
See,
coming in.
I
and
think
poking
you do
fun.
make a valid point where you say it is a fine line, because I think when Hollywood does it, we're never happy about it,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Because it's like the whole mascot idea. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? With the
Yeah.
exaggerated noses and the oversized feathers. You know what I mean? It's like that is not the image that we want to give off.
You know, I saw this interview of Denzel Washington with the cast of his movie. I forget what the movie was. I forget the movie. I forget who the director was, but it was a black director. He was executive producing it, and he was like, I wanted to get a black director. They're like, you know, and the interviewer was like, why? Was that like, why was the race thing? You know, he's like, no, it's not a race thing. It's a cultural thing, you know,
Yeah.
and how it was really cool how he explained it, you know, as far as like, you know, he's like, if I get someone from the culture that like they've been there, they understand like what it is to comb a hot comb through your hair. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like they understand, like they understand what it is to be the black, you know? And I think that's how it is for us. You know, it's like when you have like, and that's what's so exciting about what's happening now is that there are more Native American directors and artists that are out there making stuff that is more authentic, you know what I mean? And it isn't like, not to say anything bad about Johnny Depp, but it's not Johnny Depp playing the Lone Ranger, you know, Tonto, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is like the most exposure, you know, Native Americans are having, you know? It's like, no, there's real stories coming out there, which is kind of cool, you know?
Okay, so in Johnny Depp's defense, I mean,
Oh,
I
don't think
he's
there's
a
any-
wonderful like guy.
Yeah.
Like, so I had actually personally been in on the movie, and you know, he was wonderful. He was really nice to everyone on the set, and he was very respectful. And he had actually spent time with some of the what was it, the Cheyenne, the Comanche, and had been like made an honorary member by what's her name? I can't remember her name, but he had like some clearance with the Comanches to portray them.
Well, that was the cool thing about, is that he was doing almost his due diligence to be like, you know, I'm not like trying to come in and just like,
Appropriated.
yeah, you know. And
But-
like they talk about that now, like people what is the term they'd call it, whitewashing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where like let's put a white actor in for a person of color, or you know some an indigenous person. You know what I mean? It's like let's just trade them out, you know, and like you know. So I think it's kind of neat to see where things are going now.
It is a really neat time. Like I said it again, this will be the third time I said it's the Native American Renaissance. You look at like large fashion houses, right? Like they were culturally appropriating Native American print and Pendleton print. But why? Because there was no other Native companies out there that had the money and the manufacturing to make those things.
Yeah.
Well, now that we're getting off the reservation and we're making headway and we're making these companies, we're able to do that on our own. We're able to say, you know, you buy Pendleton print from a real native. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Don't buy it from a company that CEO is white, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like buy it from somebody who's based on out of Indian country. Who is Indian? You know what I mean?
Because you think about those kind of situations, what I think what is happening is you have somebody who's a designer traveling around, and then they go through New Mexico or anywhere that there's a tribe, and they see, oh, that's a Pendleton design. I like that design. Let me go ahead and I'm gonna take a picture of it, and then when I get back to my studio, I'm gonna design something with that design, along with like the Navajo rugs and all those kinds of things. If you look, you see the geometrical shapes that a lot of Native Americans have used for generations upon generations. And in a lot of those cases, a lot of those prints are specific to certain people in their certain areas. So like there's the two mountain weaving design, those kinds of things that are specifically towards like family taught patterns, whether it's beading or weaving.
Or like basically family taught techniques. If you look at how I paint, it's because of there's techniques that my own father taught me. And they do the same thing with their weavings, and they do the same thing with their symbols and things like that. And when they appropriate things like that, the meaning behind the symbolism is lost. You know what I mean? People see it and they have no idea, like, this means where my family has come from. Like you were talking about the design, and then you see that replicated over and over. And then you look at down where the money is going on top of that. It's going back to these large companies, and it's not going back to the people who originated those designs, But, looking at it from a positive standpoint, large native fashion houses are starting to exist now, and they're able to take place of these companies that were appropriating our designs. And so I'm excited for that. Like, it's a really cool time to be in fashion and in the native arts.
Yeah. Well, I definitely agree that there is, like with your statement, that there's like a renaissance happening. It's just really, it's really neat because, honestly, I didn't think a lot about it when I was younger. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I just like I might as well have been Anglo, you know what I mean? Living in the city and just like not really knowing a lot about my heritage, So it's neat that like it's coming back around, right? Like I was using they now have Navajo as a language you can learn on this app called Duolingo. It's cool. I mean, they don't have like everything that like like they have for like Spanish or something, but like it's a start. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it's
beginning.
accessible, and that's like they just like someone dubbed Star Wars in Navajo, and it's available on Disney Plus. Like when you're watching the original Star Wars, it's funny because they're doing their best to like fit the voices to the characters, But it's like that's cool. If I was a young like Navajo kid that like spoke Navajo, like that would have been awesome to see Star Wars.
It would have been
and
life-changing.
Like, whoa, like that's really cool, to be able to understand that, So yeah, I think there's pretty good things up ahead.
Yeah.
And, it's exciting that that we're witnessing it,
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be Indian right now. Like, because, it's kind of like our ancestors dealt with the trauma, right? And it's like our generation is the generation that's moving past the trauma, all the generational curses that we've been inflicted upon us. And it's like now is when the true beauty of our culture is about to come out, right? We've always found the beauty through the struggle. Now we're going to find the true beauty in the beauty, if that makes any sense.
Well, I remember. So for me, when I was around like 13, I had gotten in on that Into the West, and the way I actually got into it was I had not actually been interested in acting up until like we were headed to church one day, and we heard the casting call over the radio, and basically it was on Singing Wire. Anyone that from Albuquerque knows that like on Sundays they have a special spot for Native American music, and I mean, it'll be like powwow music and like all the old chugga-chung, chugga-chung, chugga-chung kind of tunes. And so, I remember even like hearing like Vincent Craig like once played on that the Rita song. If anyone even remembers that. But we ended up hearing the casting call for a movie called Into the West, and my parents were like, "Hey, is that something you'd be interested in doing?" And I was like, "Sure, why not? I don't know. Let's do it." And so in like preparing for it, like this audition, which I had never gone to an audition, we went home, and I had my regalia that I wore for Indian market and other times, and a lot of it was like pieced together by me, my parents, my grandparents. I had leggings that were passed down from my grandfather, and so I got all dressed up, have feathers, I have paint on my face, and all this other stuff, and we go down, and there's just a huge line with like hundreds and hundreds of other natives like in line, and we end up in the back, and it just so happened that like it was getting towards noon, and one of the PAs came walking down the line and saw me dressed up and was like, "Hey, you're obviously eye-catching. Let me take a look at you." They took my picture. They had a list of actors that they were already considering, and they were looking for a younger person to fit one of them. And it just so happened that I believe it was Eddie Spears that I looked like. And so I got to play the younger version of Eddie Spears.
Anybody ever tell you look like a young Eddie Spears?
You're very reminiscent of a young Eddie Spears.
Which was so cool because like I used like what I already had, like being native. I used being native for all these years to like land myself a role in Into the West. And the fact that Eddie Spears was also, I looked like Eddie Spears, also helped. And I thought that was really cool. Which opened up like a whole like off and on acting career for me.
Shoot, man. I think Into the West is a whole topic of its own. I have some stories.
There's a lot of stories about that.
Yeah, just the sheer amount of oh man, maximum. Sorry, we still have this one going. It's recording.
Okay.
But just the sheer amount of of like people involved and family involved.
Like the good and bad stories.
Yeah.
I think that one of the most coolest things about our family and this whole podcast is almost any time we all go do something, for one, it's almost a group. And there's always an event that happens. Like something always happens to where it makes that moment memorable for us.
Yeah.
Like whether it was us going for a hiking trip and Elliot riding his motor or his bike off the cliff, or going to a family reunion and like somebody like falling down chasing an armadillo. Like there was something about it that is like so memorable. Like it's just always an event, and it's always so much fun. But I miss those days.
Yeah, it's true, man. We were a rambunctious bunch. You know what I mean? But it was like our parents did like a really good job of like making it inclusive. You know what I mean? It wasn't just our family. Like there would be other people's families that were like, it's infectious. You know, to be around and you're included, and it's just we have a good time, man. It's fun. All right.
Well, I guess that's probably going to be it for us to this episode.
I think so.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
And everyone, just be sure if you guys are interested in what we're doing, you can look us up on Off the Reservation Podcast on Instagram, and check us out on you can also hear us and subscribe to us on Spotify and Anchor.fm. So check us out, because it would be a lot cooler if you did.